Hey everybody, it's William. This is my second video on climate change, and in this one we'll cover kind of strategies humans are using to address climate change and its negative effects, mitigation, adaptation, and geoengineering for climate change. First, let's talk about mitigation. I'd say this one is probably the most commonly used. And mitigation essentially involves kind of a drive to cut emissions. So with mitigation, we want to cut emissions, kind of cut the emissions from fossil fuels. So not burning as many fossil fuels, shutting down factories would be a plus. So with mitigation, we want to shut down factories. We don't want these greenhouse gases represented right here. We want to kind of lower how many of these we're taking out of the, we're putting into the atmosphere with mitigation. And in general, with mitigation, we want to live greener. So not only do we want to stop burning fossil fuels, we want to live green and invest in renewable energy sources so that in the future we can continue our lifestyles without having to still burn fossil fuels and warm our climate. So finding renewable energy sources like hydroelectricity and dams is a positive, where we can capture kind of energy from water flowing through here. Or maybe we can, these happen, I'm sure you've seen them, but build more wind farms to capture wind energy for our needs and use this all over. Or maybe we use solar energy or hybrid. The list is very long. Hybrid, also electric cars and hybrid cars are huge. Cars right now are actually kind of also a large group which releases emissions, kind of what you see coming out of exhaust pipes into the atmosphere, which are unhealthy for the atmosphere and warm it. So having green cars which you can plug in and don't rely on burning gas for energy, that would also extremely help our planet cool down. The second strategy is adaptation. With adaptation, we essentially accept unpreventable changes which are going to happen with global warming. So we say, okay, sure, the temperature is going to be warmer, sea levels are going to rise, the oceans are going to warm, deserts are going to expand, extreme weather events are going to become more common. But with adaptation, when we accept these unpreventable changes, we look towards the future. And we try to make it so that our future can be as bright as possible. So we look to the future by altering current systems so that they'll work and satisfy the constraints that unpredictable changes may bring on. So let's say we accept that temperatures are going to be warmer. So we expect temperatures are going to be warmer. So we'll say like 100 degrees or something. So we accept that fact. In addition to the fact that oceans and sea levels are going to rise. We'll accept those two. Really with adaptation, we kind of accept all of them and just let it happen and prepare. But this is just a little demonstration. We accept these two, and then to prepare and look to the future to make it as bright as possible, we then maybe experiment and use science to develop a certain strain of wheat which is completely resistant to hotter weather and which actually strives in hotter weather. And so, therefore, when temperatures raise due to global warming, we'll be fine with the wheat, and we will not have a food shortage because these guys are all ready for the warm weather with their sunglasses here. And they'll do fine in warm weather, and our food production will not take a blow. We'll be unaffected. And maybe for shoreline, we'll develop shoreline protection technologies or methods for protecting the shore so that when kind of the water rises up here, maybe we'll have a shore wall to protect kind of people's homes back here from erosion and stuff like that. Or maybe when these sea levels rise and climate change occurs, maybe we'll find a way to make water more efficient in the meantime. So through adaptation, we can kind of change the way we live too, but instead of trying to stop global warming, it's more an attitude of embracement and moving on. Mitigation and adaptation were the only two options for a while. And most people don't know about this third option. Even, maybe scientists don't know about it. It's new, it's debated. People debate if it's possible, if it's safe, if it will actually work, if it's too expensive, if it's ethical, if we're able to govern it. But this is a big idea and a relatively new idea. It's geoengineering for climate change, something that actually really interests me, and I think personally it's possible. But geoengineering for climate change, also known as climate engineering. So instead of trying to stop it or embracing it and then moving on, as we did with mitigation, or as we would do with mitigation or adaptation, with geoengineering, we're deliberately using technology and our manpower. So it's a deliberate action to enter Earth's climate, intervene, and simply not allow global warming to occur. We would be manipulating temperatures, manipulating the climate to our liking. So it's deliberate intervention into the climate. And geoengineering also suggests it's large scale, so it's on a global scale. Into climate. There are lots of ideas we could talk. Geoengineering is another one of those things, like the greenhouse effect, that we could make a lot of videos on. I can make a lot of videos on. I can talk all day about this, but I'm going to do my best to have another summary for you, so you can take the gist and what's important. There are two main types of climate engineering. There's carbon engineering and solar engineering. And carbon is usually on a smaller scale. It's usually safer too, but also less effective. And solar is the opposite. It's larger. It's on a global scale. And ideas can get radical. It's a little more risky, but the benefits can be large. And this one also costs maybe a little bit more. This one will only put $1 sign here to show it doesn't cost as much, but all are still very expensive, but just comparatively. And carbon engineering, for example, with geoengineering, an example of carbon engineering would be using machines and technology to directly take carbon dioxide out of the air. So with carbon engineering, we're focusing on extracting carbon dioxide, which I explained earlier is kind of the primary reason humans are causing this climate epidemic right now. So let's draw that machine here. So carbon dioxide, we have greenhouse gases here, and they would enter the system, be brought down, stored in the ground, stored in this ground, and then kind of clean air would come out without these greenhouse gases. So sunlight could escape, and the Earth would hopefully cool over time. With solar engineering, solar geoengineering, this is a little more radical. We could put things in space. For example, put mirrors in space. This would be crazy, where with solar engineering, we're focusing on reflecting the sunlight back into space. A lot of it before it can reach the bottom of Earth, so that it's not trapped and Earth becomes kind of the oven that is Earth continues to warm up. We're just not letting the sunlight in. So maybe we put mirrors in space, for example, with solar geoengineering, these small little mirror-like things, or maybe we'll put special particles in the atmosphere up here that reflect sunlight, so that when sunlight enters from the sun up here, it then doesn't move down here, it can't, and it just goes out again. But some of it, of course, does, so that it would only block, for example, I think 1.8% are the estimates. Same with these mirrors, but 1.8% could be a lot, but we'd still be able to our crops, we would still be able to harvest things, and animals and humans would have enough sunlight for their kind of daily uses of things. But Earth's temperature would also, therefore, be regulated with less sunlight and less energy coming in. Okay, so that was my attempt at kind of summing up geoengineering for you, but in short, there are risks. We don't know about it. Scientists are still researching it. But this is definitely a possible third option for addressing climate change, and one which I personally believe could be vital in the next century when kind of humankind needs to address climate change and needs to do something about it. It's one of our biggest problems. To recap, 3 methods: mitigation, trying to stop the problem, living greener; adaptation, accepting it and moving on; and geoengineering, not letting it happen. Hopefully you learned something from those videos, from climate change and the greenhouse effect to strategies for addressing it, and hopefully you can, in your own communities and in your own lives, do your best to slow climate change. Thank you.